Okay, everybody, we're getting through. We've gotten most of the kind of important parts of the class done. This next link, submitting to Blackboard, I just created this morning. It doesn't look quite as, well, looks even worse now that I'm looking at it than the other ones. But I think it gets the point across for what needs to get across. Everything you're going to be submitting to me is going to be in Blackboard. I've got a link in the schedule page on how to submit to Blackboard once you have your file. But I want to make sure that you actually put your stuff into a file. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the types of submissions that work and also those that don't. And these are the ones I keep seeing show up. I've mentioned a couple times already, the way you can do your work is use a word processor like Microsoft Word. That's probably the best one to use just because it's the one that Blackboard can open. You can do your work on any kind of scrap paper and then take a picture of it and then convert it to either an single image file or a multiple page PDF file. We'll talk about that in a minute. Or you can do a combination of both. What some students did last term, and many students do many terms, is they just open a Word document, and if they find themselves having to create scrap paper work, they'll take pictures of that and then send it to themselves and drop the picture files onto their Word document, which is a perfectly awesome way of actually getting stuff into one document. So real quick, I want to make sure that we come down here and talk about all this. Submission types that work in Blackboard. There aren't that many, honestly. The first is a Microsoft Word document, and they usually have a .doc or .docx suffix. What's nice about using Microsoft Word is it automatically creates one single document, which means you don't have to worry about combining a bunch of individual files into one multi-page document. So if you use Microsoft Word, you're already covered. What some students do, however, and it's totally fine, they'll use scrap paper. And there's two ways you can submit a picture of your, well, I guess there's three ways. If you have access to a scanner, then your scanner can combine all of your pages into one document. I don't know how many of you actually have access to a scanner, but most of you have access to a phone, which can take pictures, which is what most of my students actually use, which is great. So if you have a single page, piece of cake, take a picture of your image and upload the image into Blackboard. Okay, usually a picture taken by a cell phone is a .jpg file. I want to come back to that in a second. I'm not sure, I don't have an iPhone and I haven't for a few years. There is a file type that iPhone uses that Blackboard doesn't like. I'll talk about that in a second. But let's suppose you have more than one page of stuff. You've got a couple pages of scrap paper, okay? One thing you can do is take pictures of each of those and then use a free PDF scan document. So one of them, a lot of my students have been using, is called Genius Scan. What it allows you to do is take a bunch of pictures and then group them all into one single PDF. What I don't want you to do is to simply upload a bunch of individual pictures. Like you should be uploading one document for each assessment. That's a simple rule. Upload one document for each assessment. If you find yourself uploading more than one document, you're doing something incorrectly. So if you have multiple pages, use Genius Scan, for example, to combine them into one document. Now, like I said, I don't have any problem with a document that has multiple pages. I have a problem with multiple documents. So one document per submission. Thank you very much in advance. Okay, here's ones that don't work in Blackboard. Okay, there's a file type called HEIC, and I forget what it stands for. It's a Macintosh, an Apple proprietary image file, and Blackboard, for whatever reason, cannot open it. So if you send me something in that format, I won't be able to open it, which means I can't grade it. So if your phone does take HEIC, I would look online and figure out how to change it to something else. I can't imagine that Apple would force you to use a file type that you couldn't edit, but who knows? What do I know? A zipped folder. Some students try to email me zipped folders. Don't upload folders to Blackboard, upload documents to Blackboard. Okay, so just so you know, I mean, I would accept them if Blackboard could open them, but they can't. Submission text. this is one of the most infuriating things. You might notice my tone has changed as I'm talking about Blackboard. I'm not a fan of Blackboard, and I'm hoping that COCC gets rid of it at some point. But we're stuck with it for right now, and it usually puts me in a really foul mood just thinking about it. Anyway, submission text. Please don't use. Blackboard gives you the option to use submission text. Don't use it. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible little feature. And calling it a feature is actually a disservice to the word feature. That allows you to type and sometimes embed pictures into Blackboard directly, but then I can't actually comment on it. The reason I've got all these mentions over here is because if you don't use these, I can't put comments on them. I can't communicate with you in Blackboard. The only thing you're going to use Blackboard for in this class is to send me submissions of your assessments like this. So if I'm gonna grade them, if you get a perfect score, that's great. But if you don't, I want to make sure you know what you did wrong. And the only way I can let you know what you did wrong is by adding comments to Blackboard documents. And that means they have to be in one of these forms. Okay? So just heads up, these are the kind of forms you need to go. Something else just came to me. Something else over here. Don't send me links to Google Docs. I cannot open Google Docs within Blackboard. That just doesn't work. I'll add that to this web page so we have it later. Okay, a couple of the quick little Blackboard notes. I mentioned this before. Don't ever print off something that you're going to do and then squish your answers in and then rescan and upload. Number one, I don't want you having to print anything. And number two, there's not going to be enough room to actually do the work I need you to do there. I'm trying to be conservative with space. And this is just kind of a pet peeve. Please, when you do your pictures of your documents, make sure that everything's oriented correctly so I'm not craning my neck to open things in Blackboard. And just be legible. Be legible. That's all I'm going to talk about right there. Okay? So this is how to upload stuff in Blackboard. And like I mentioned before, on the schedule page, let me scroll up here. On the schedule page, I've got a little tutorial video on how to submit document in Blackboard, how to submit a document in Blackboard. So just so you know, you've got that waiting for you on the schedule page. And that is submitting to Blackboard. I think we'll stop the video here and then we'll get into the grading policy and beyond as we go. All righty.